Guys, today I wanted to do something a little bit different by turning my blog into video. So it's the same blog that I wrote yesterday, but explained in a video. So first of all, I did this blog to raise awareness, and to do so, I had to talk about the real thing, which are mental health. I cannot talk about your mental health, so I'll talk about mine. So I'll talk about my mental illnesses and disorders. Um, I'm about to get fully transparent with you guys. I cannot be more transparent than that. Um, this video is more about my diagnosis and how I feel about them. In another video, I might talk more about how it affects my life. Um, when I got those diagnoses, I had a lot of stereotypes in my life, a lot of stigmas. It was just not something I wanted to be a part of. Um, yeah. Um, for the ones who don't know me, I have several diagnoses: generalized anxiety disorders, depression, borderline personality disorder, attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, impulse phobias, and eating disorder. Um, I'm also gonna talk about self-harm and suicide attempts. So of course, before getting into it, I would like to put a trigger warning because what I'm gonna talk about may trigger some people. So without further ado, let's get into the subject. Um, let's talk. Let's talk. Let's talk about generalized anxiety disorder. First of all, here are some stats. 8.7 of Canadian, 3.1% of American, and 5% of British will experience the symptom of GAD in their lifetime. Even though it looks like a lot, this is the least frequent anxiety disorder listed. I think the one that's listed the most is social anxiety disorder, but I'm not sure about it. So I received this diagnosis at 14, but I'm sure I had it way before because it didn't appear like that. Like from one day to another, I have a diagnosis. Um. So yeah, but when I received the diagnosis, I denied it, and I tried to live like I had never received it. Um, because I had a lot of stereotype in mind, and it was scaring me because all of this was unknown to me. And the biggest stereotype I had came from the medias, calling it the disorder of the dysthenia and telling that everyone has it. So I didn't want to be called an attention seeker because I thought everyone was diagnosing themselves with anxiety disorders. Um, to have attention from others, but I had not diagnosed myself. It was a psychiatrist that diagnosed me, and yeah, but nobody would know that I wouldn't be in the street telling everyone, "Ha, I got anxiety disorders," and it's by a certified psychiatrist, and I don't know. I assume I would have been called an attention seeker, so that's why I denied it at first. Um, that was one of my biggest fears, so I decided I would live like I had never received a diagnosis. That being said, I refused any kind of help coming from people. Um, After I received the diagnosis, I changed like from one to another, like drastically. I became more extrovert to hide my anxiety, and I was known to be the happy, confident, positive, and talkative girl in school, and everyone knew me. Like for real, I was not popular, but if you would go see someone and ask them if they knew Orphe, they would say yes. She's the girl who plays ukulele and she does improvisation comedy and everything. Um, but it demanded me a lot of strength. and at home it wasn't the same at all because it was just too much at school. So when I was home, it was choleric, irritable, and very unhappy. Um, I was obviously wearing a mask to hide my true self because I was so scared. Yeah. So I thought it was helping me, but I was slowly destroying myself instead. So I hid behind that mask for about 3 years, and after those years, there was a rupture in my life, a very painful rupture. Um, I had never received help um, before last year, and it's obvious why I didn't. Like I hid behind my mask, like if everything was okay, but it wasn't. Um, but I think that the intervener at school should have digged deeper because they knew my diagnosis, and but they decided to do like I did and close their eyes in front of the diagnosis. But that should have thought, but they should have thought that this radical change in my behavior was something not good about me. Um, and I know that even if I was hiding my anxiety deeply inside me, I was scared to death. Like everything was scaring me, and in those moments, dissociating was my only exit. Um, Today I can no longer hide my anxiety. It follows me everywhere. I have no time to rest. At night, it keeps me awake, and during the day, it makes me doubt about everything I do. Um, I am no longer able to spend time with those I used to call my friends because I'm scared to say something inadequate or to act weirdly. So I went from the girl that everybody knew to the invisible girl who hide in the dressing room for real, literally. I spend most of my free time at the library creating characters for the book I'm planning to write, but I turned like introvert, but that's because of my anxiety. Um, I kept my sense of humor and I tried to keep doing things that I like. I do theater, but I don't get along with everyone in the group, and I don't like that. I also decided to keep doing improvisation comedy, but I know that my performances are worse since my rupture in high school. My life in college is distressing and I isolate more and more, so that's not good. Then there's when I received my depression diagnosis. So here's some stats again. 25% of Canadians has a degree of depression serious enough to need treatment at some point in their lives. It's 30% in the US, 13% in the US, and 19.7 in the UK. So the rupture happened, and after a few weeks of feeling worse, um, the school counselors started talking about depression. When I got told that they were suspecting me of having depression, I denied it again, and I just said, "Oh, but depression is way worse than what I'm feeling right now. I'm not having a depression." Um, but they forced me to go to the hospital, and at the hospital they asked me to take an appointment with my family doctor. And that's what I did. And after 2 appointments with my doctor, I got prescribed sertraline, aka Zoloft, which is an antidepressant. My doctor told me it would not be for too long, only the time I came back to my normal self. But that never happened, so I'm still on antidepressant. Um, that's the diagnosis I got for 2 weeks before getting back to the hospital with the suicidal in my pocket. Um, I felt bad for having depression because I was sure people living with depression were feeling worse than I was. But I cannot contradict what a psychiatrist diagnoses. So, but one thing that happened when I received that diagnosis is that I allowed myself to feel vulnerable. It was the first time that had entered since I had entered the mental disorder community, like I like to call it, um, that I was giving myself that right. Um, it obviously did me some good. Um, then I received my borderline personality disorder, also known as BPD. So here's some stats again because I put some stats. Um, so 1 to 2% of the Canadian population is diagnosed with BPD in their lifetime. That's 1.6% in the US and it's 1% in the UK. At the same time, I went to the hospital after my suicide attempt. I got told I had BPD symptoms. Um, as I was not 18 yet, and in Canada, we need to have 18 to be diagnosed with BPD. I could not receive the diagnosis, but I would have been 18 like 2 months later. So for me, the diagnosis was pretty official, even though it was not in my file. Um, so I decided to learn more about this disorder, and what I learned scared me a lot. I read a lot of stigmas, and I was sure that by being diagnosed with BPD, I was a monster. What scared me the most was that people with BPD are in some cases manipulative, and I didn't want to be tagged as manipulative. Though my current social worker reassured me when she told me she didn't believe I had this trait, but it still scares me. So yeah. Um, 2 months went by and I went to the hospital around 10 times. When it was really crazy. I was always at the hospital for a night or two. Um, so yeah. During summer, I had a huge disorganization at work, and I was brought to the hospital, and that's when the psychiatrist that was there got me into a day hospital. I think they had enough to see me at the hospital every week. So yeah. Uh, a few weeks later, I was meeting the nurse for the first time, and I was entering the hospital for 10 weeks, for 3 times a week. Um, I was followed by a nurse, a social worker, and a mental health occupational therapist. Plus, I had group meeting. Um, at the same time, I met my psychiatrist, who still follows me to this day. Um, After a lot of trials and different medication, such as Seroquel, Abilify, Phenerian, Prazosin, Risperidone, my psychiatrist left me with 7 milligrams of Abilify, 100 milligrams of Phenergan, 10 milligrams of Prazosin, 3.5 milligrams of Risperidone, and my 150 milligrams of sertraline. When the hospital ended for me, I met my current social worker, and she's just amazing. Um, though this diagnosis still scares me a lot and doesn't help my anxiety because I feel like I have to watch every move I make, and it's just hard to just watch every move I make. The next disorder, I didn't have such a bad time accepting it. I was diagnosed with attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, aka ADHD. I was talking about my childhood and my grades to my psychiatrist, and he diagnosed me with ADHD. It wasn't as simple as that, but it was pretty simple if compared to the other diagnoses. He prescribed me 40 milligrams of Vivance. He decided that I couldn't take an higher dosage because one of the side effects is anxiety, and as I already have anxiety, it would just make it worse. Yep. So here with some stats. 4% of adult Canadians live with ADHD. It's 5% in the US and 2% in the UK. Um, the next diagnosis was pretty difficult for me to accept as well, like every other diagnosis except ADHD. Um, while I was at the hospital, I learned that what I I had lived was psychological, physical, and sexual abuse. So I couldn't keep denying what happened because I was denying so much before. Um, so a few time after I stopped denying this, I started having flashbacks and nightmares. And after a 2-week hospitalization in psychiatric care, I was diagnosed with PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. I denied it a little, like every other diagnosis except ADHD, but I had to revise myself and learn more about this diagnosis to learn how to live with it. That one I had a hard time dealing with it because I thought it would only happen to people who experienced more traumatic events than I did. But I think it's a question of capacity to endure certain form of stress, and it depends on each person, I think. Yeah. So the next diagnosis I didn't even know existed. Um, so a few weeks ago, I received a new diagnosis, impulse phobias. Um, this diagnosis came after several months living with huge irrational fears, such as jumping in front of a car in the street, jumping off a running car, jumping off the bridge, etc. My psychiatrist started talking about what he calls impulse phobia. In fact, this is simple. It's impulse phobias are phobias about making, among others, a self-destructive move. So I was scared to kill myself. Um, this diagnosis was one of I was less familiar with, and I didn't know such a thing was existing. Though I easily accepted diagnosis and learned a bit more about it, there's there's not a lot of information about this disorder, but I learned that it's a part of OCD, but I don't have OCDs, but I have this part which is associated a lot with OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. Yeah. Um, so I struggled. If we talk about self harm, I struggled a lot with self harm since I'm 12, and I'm almost 19. Um, but in fact, I stopped burning and cutting myself between 13 and 16, but I was still preventing myself from eating, which is one way I found to self harm. Um, so since I'm 17, I restarted to self harm. So what I do is burning, cutting, scratching, biting, and preventing myself from eating. Um, so I'm starving myself. That's it. Um, so I'm starting to learn how to stop self harming, but it's pretty difficult because at first it does me good, and it's good at first when I do it, but after I obviously feel bad about myself. But I'm working hard on this so to stop and just be as normal as I could. Um, so my psychiatrist never officially diagnosed me with an eating disorder because he refers the fact that I starve myself being self-harm, not an eating disorders, but though it doesn't deny that I may have one because I starve myself. Um, so if we talk about suicide attempts, in the last year I did 4 of them. Um, maybe I could do a video talking more in details about those, but well, my first suicide attempt was in April 2019. I had cut my wrist, and I don't know if you can see it. That's one of the scars that I have. Um, uh, so yep, my second one was in November 2019. I tried to jump in front of a car. I say try because cars were stopping, so I just tried. But people in the cars were just so kind that they wouldn't let me die. So yeah. The third one was in January 2020. I had taken a lot of medication. I think I documented it on my Instagram. And the last one was 3 weeks ago, actually. It was in March 2020, and I had also taken pills. So yeah, I hope this was not too much triggering nor too much boring. Sorry for my accent and like my stuttering because I'm French, so I know how to speak English, but like I'm French Canadian, so that's not my mother tongue. Um, so let me know if you like those type of blogs, and I might continue to do some if you prefer watching a video instead of reading a blog post. So let me know in the comment what you think of this video and what I should talk about in next time. So I hope it was not too boring. So thanks for having listening to me. And I know I'm stressed right now. I just had anxiety with the COVID-19 is just over the roof. So that's it. I have a lot of anxiety. So if I sound breathless, it's normal because anxiety is through the roof. So I hope you have a okay evening, morning, afternoon, or anything wherever you are. So thanks for watching. See you soon.